Well, it's Tuesday, May. We just had Cinco de Mayo yesterday. For everybody listening, we are here in the podcast studio with Rita Mason. Rita Mason is a death doula, and basically that means helping others prepare and be educated to navigate their end of life options. Now, Rita, no pressure today at all, but you are one of the most asked for people on our podcast. So everybody wants to know, what is a death doula? We're going to go through all these questions. I selfishly have a list of questions because I want to know, but this is the podcast where people are like, oh my gosh, death doula, tell me more about that. But before we get too far into it, your podcast number 4 for us. So that's awesome. We've worked out some of the kinks, Colby, myself, the other people, but everybody gets a gift. So your gift is here. It is this beautiful the Green Burial Chronicles of Morgan Oaks with a gift card as a thank you. You'll get that at the end. For those of you that have been on the podcast previously, you get one too. They just got it here. So Rita gets the first official one. So congratulations. Awesome. Welcome. We're so excited to have you. So let's really get into this. So number one, I think my biggest question to just start the podcast is, tell me a little bit about you and like, how did you even get into this like world of death doula-ing, if that's a word?
Yes, we'll make it a word.
Okay.
Yeah. So yeah, thank you for having me first off. And so I would say I got into it just organically and naturally. And whenever I'm from Pennsylvania.
Okay.
So I am from Pennsylvania, and I have 2 grandchildren. But I moved out here in California. But growing up in Pennsylvania, my mom is from a family of 12.
Wow.
My mom had 8 babies, so I'm the youngest of all the babies, and so I was with her while the others were off, and so she would always take me with her to funerals and nursing homes and all that, and I was digging in my heels like, no, I don't want to go, because I didn't want to do that. But now, fast forwarding as an adult, I am grateful and I'm very appreciative that my mom did that, because I realized that so many people are shielded from death, and they're protected. They're not told about it. They're not allowed to see a dead body. And I think as an adult, that really is detrimental, because they haven't been able to process or accept or grasp what has happened to their loved one that all of a sudden they don't see anymore.
Right.
And so I say I just organically, naturally was groomed into this. My mom would take me to the nursing homes with her. And so I have this big family, a lot of aunts and uncles, cousins. Sure. And so we would go visit people, and walking down the hallway, then I would see these eyes would just follow me down the hall. And that just broke my heart. Like, here I am with this huge family and this huge support system. And then there's people week after week, day after day, that have never did I see them have a visitor and anybody there. And it was just so sad to me. So I think, that just created this compassion in me. It's like, oh my gosh, like, we're so fortunate to have these siblings, these cousins, these aunts and uncles, and there's these people that don't have anybody. So that really groomed me just naturally, and to get into this work. It wasn't like I woke up and said, I want to work with dying people, And so so that just really gave me the presence and the ability to be there, and the compassion. And so, of course, I went to funerals. My mom took me with her, so it even though at first I didn't want to, but like I said, as an adult now, I am really grateful that she did that for me. Yeah.
I love it. Okay. So you said a couple of things that I really want to hit on. Number one, I think death is a hard conversation, and we'll get more into that. But I was much like you as a kid. We had a running thing in our family where every December for 6 years, someone died.
Oh, wow.
And so I was like, I knew death. I understood it. I went to every funeral. And so it was scary as I grew older, but I knew it was part of life, right? We had animals that would pass away. And so I was never shielded from that part of life. And so I think you bring up a really great thing, is that it's hard to talk about, and people want to shield their loved ones, kids especially, just anyone, because it's hard, especially if you don't have the tools. The other thing I think that you said that becomes really like emotional for me is those individuals that are put in care facilities, or even like my dad was in ICU for 7 days, and I was there every single day, morning to night. And there were so many rooms that I walked by that never had visitors. And that is heartbreaking, right? Also, I wanted to point out the fact that you are one of 8. And for an only child, that's very overwhelming. So, oh my gosh, great for you. Okay, so let's lead into, because I know some people are like, well, you're jumping right in, but what is the definition of a death doula?
So a doula is a person who, it's non-medical.
Okay.
So we support people physically, emotionally, mentally, spiritually. And so a death doula is specifically for, before, during, after death.
Okay.
And so it's being a companion, it's being an advocate, it's being whatever that person needs who is preparing and planning for end of life.
Okay. So walk me through this. Like, obviously there's a lot of detail you could go into, but I'm a new client of yours and I'm sick. Like, what is before death look like? What are you doing with me when you come over for a visit?
So we meet first off and then see, is it a mesh for each other? Like, are we good to work with each other? And what does a person have? Where are they? What's their support system? What do they want? What are their goals? And so just seeing, of course, every single one, if 10 people contact me, they're all going to be in a different situation and a different process and a different acceptance of death and where they are. So it could be from planning, preparing, their paperwork, their advance directive, their end of life wishes, their bucket list, so to speak, before they die. Doing that paperwork, like body disposition is part of it. What do they want done with their body when they're done with it? And so any questions or fears or anything with that, we're a huge companion with the hospice because hospice is limited on their time that they're able to spend with people. And so a doula being non-medical, so hospice does the medical care and the physical care, like the home health aides and that. So a doula does the non-medical care. So we fit in nicely in conjunction with, complementing each other. And so the doula is there, being independent, we're not limited by the time that we can be there with a person. And so we're the extra eyes and ears. Like if we see something change, if we see the pain increase, if we just notice anything, then we can be in contact with hospice to say, hey, there's been a change, there's been a shift, and then get them in there and get the care. So the ultimate goal is the best quality of life possible until the end.
So now that's our pre. Now I'm really sick and we're during. Are you just coming over and companion? And what does that look like now?
Yeah. So a huge part of it is their support system. Do they have a spouse? Do they have children? Do they have anybody around? There's a thing called NODA, no one dies alone. And so me seeing those eyes follow me down the hall, that's a big thing. So if they don't have a support system, then everything and anything they want, I say, you're in the driver's seat. As long as it's legal, I'm going to make it happen. And so whatever they want, this is all about them. It's not about me. It's not about what I want or don't want. And so whatever they need is to keep them comfortable. And again, that quality of life. And so they're in the process of that. So making sure, a lot of people have guilt or fear or unfinished business or unforgiveness. So there's a lot of things that may need to be resolved or may need to be talked about. And I have found that me being a doula, being an unbiased person outside of their life, that they will open up to me. They don't want to tell a spouse. They don't want to tell a child. They don't want to tell a sibling, but they'll be able to open up. And then you can just see the relief, like they don't have to carry this with them. And so just being that extra set of ears and being present with them, like, again, it's all about them. Whenever I'm there with them and I'm working with somebody, then whatever I can help them with their journey.
You're all theirs. Okay. So now I've passed. Is there finishing stuff that you do? What's your role once I've passed?
So make sure what do we want done with the body, and then if nobody's there, I will stay until. So if they're on hospice, then call the hospice nurse and let them be the ones to pronounce the death.
Okay.
And I'll stay there until the mortuary comes, until the body is taken away. And there's no rush to that. Okay, they're dead. It's not a crisis. We don't need to hurry up and do that.
Yeah.
So that can take, as long, like some people request to not be disturbed or moved or, to be just left there, after they pass. And so again, whatever their wishes are, I'm there like a genie.
Yeah.
I'm there to make their wish come true.
That's cool.
And so, I will stay there until the body's picked up. And
Okay.
then afterwards, if there is family, then I have being present at the bedside when the death happens. There's people that are not present either by choice or, if the loved one doesn't want them there, the dying person. Then I have been able to help people. They'll call me like, oh, they weren't there, or they felt guilty, or I didn't call them back, or I didn't respond to that email.
Yeah.
So I'll be able to help them. I'll be able to share with them like, it was a pleasant, peaceful passing. I'll be able to fill in the blanks for them, because you know how it is. If we have a blank, then our monkey mind wants to fill that in, and we can get wild and crazy with our ideas and answers to that. So being able to be there and reassure them about their loved ones passing. And so that's been helpful for those that are left behind.
Oh my gosh. I'm just like, Rita, I could sit and listen to this all day. For the listeners, those of you listening and watching, Rita and I met a while ago at what we call OAC, and that's kind of a networking event for our industry. Hospice, death care, all of us kind of come together once a month and meet. And I heard Rita speak. And, Rita, one of the things that really stood out to me is, one, I didn't understand the doula world and element. And for me, it was new. And you spoke so well. Your heart showed really well. I could just tell you were kind, you were gentle, and this wasn't about Rita and her business. This was about how can I serve others, and really in being someone that deals with death and has dealt with death, to see somebody like you come in that's like, I genuinely want to love these people and walk them through the process, really attracted me to having you here, but also just what you do. So thank you for being that person in this industry. Easy question. How long have you been doing this?
So I officially started volunteering with hospice back in 2010. And then went through with that family, went through several deaths, like helping family and friends. And then in 2021, I learned about a death doula, end-of-life doula. And so I went through the certification, the training, and went independent in 2021.
Okay.
And the biggest thing for me is that time. Like if I want to spend an hour, if I want to spend a day, I'm not limited by the time. Like even as a volunteer, you can. Yeah. So it really allowed me to be more free in how I can serve and how long and what I can do for them. And so,
I love that. Okay. So then let's go back. You said certification and training. What does it look like to get trained, certified? What do you have licenses? What are the things that you have to have in place in order to be a death doula? Or could I wake up tomorrow and be like, you know what? I want to be a death doula. And boom, I'm a death doula. What does that look like?
Yeah. So unofficially, I think a lot of people are death doulas. I mean, those people that are at the bedside, those people that are going to the appointments, those people that are advocates for their loved one going through. I mean, you really have to be your own advocate when you're going through medical things.
You do.
And, even hospice and end of life.
Yeah.
And for me, though, having the certification, it was an online training, and then there's a certificate at the end. And so anybody can be one and do it. There's an extra step. There's an organization called NEDA, the National End-of-Life Doula Alliance, and they have a competency exam. And so I took that exam, and so I have a proficiency badge, and that's important to me because that shows at least that I've dedicated, I became certified, I have this core knowledge. What's scary to me is that people go through training and then all of a sudden they're a death doula and they have no bedside experience, but they have this piece of paper that said they went through the training. And so that could be a little scary, you know? So at least with the competent exam, at least there's a minimum knowledge, that there is at least, that. And
Yeah, that would make me a little nervous too.
Yeah.
So I'm glad you have that. So thank you.
Yes.
Thank you for taking your business to the next level. Okay, you guys, just so you guys that are listening, I have a whole list of questions. I'm not even sure that I've gotten into most of these because I love this idea. And so my next question for you would just be, when you're caring for someone, do you take one family at a time from start to finish? Do you have multiple families that you're dealing with? What does your caseload look like? Maybe is what I would call it.
Sure. Is if they're imminent, like if their end of life is near in their process, then I would choose to just do one-on-one because we never know when their last day is going to be, and I wouldn't want to be like, oh no, have multiple people going. So when they're at that point in life, I like to be just one-on-one. And so maybe in a year, maybe I only work with 1, 2, or 3 people. You know, it could be small depending on how long we're working together. If they're in the beginning stages, if they're doing their planning, if they're preparing, you know, thinking of their final wishes, then that can be multiple because they're healthy. You know, we know anybody could go anytime. Like we get in our car every day.
Right.
So yeah, but if they are not with a terminal diagnosis, then it can be numerous at a time.
Okay. Do you find that most of your clients are people coming to you that don't have any support, any loved ones, or are they people that do have support, but maybe that family just doesn't have time? Like, what is the majority of the people that are coming to you? What does their support system look like?
Yeah. So I have that NODA, No One Dies Alone. Coincidentally, those seem to be the majority of what I attract. People that don't have a system. People don't have spouses or that. They say that like 78 million, there's baby boomers, and about 20% of them don't have children or spouses. And, you know, we're living longer because of this great healthcare system. So people are aging, solo aging. And so there are a lot, and there's going to be a lot more that are going through this experience without a support or a loved one. Yeah. And so I do work with a lot of people that don't have anybody. And even if they have a support system, maybe they don't agree, or it's hard for them to be in that space, or they don't want to face it. That's why I have my little elephant, you know, that elephant on the table that people don't want to talk about. You know, death is something that a lot of people shy away from. Like, it is. They don't want to talk about it because they think it'll happen, or, you know, if they talk about it, it's going to happen. Or if they don't talk about it, it'll never happen. But we
hear
know
that all the time at the cemetery. It's like, well, if I pre-plan, I'm going to die soon. And I'm like, no, that's not how that works. But, you know, my dad was the same way. He died at 81. And I mean, Rita, literally on his deathbed, it was figuring out what he wanted to do because he would never talk about it. And it was just, I think he thought if he talked about it, it would happen. And he'd never been sick. So it was like, you know, for all these people that haven't pre-planned, I look at them and I think, do your family a favor. Yeah. Like, start the planning process. Start talking to someone, anyone. If it's hard for you to talk about with your family, call a Rita so that she can start the process. Because I do think that's important. Okay. So one of the things I wanted to talk about is it VSED? Okay. Yeah. So tell us, you guys, this is something. So the question is, do you support clients who choose VSED? First, what is VSED? So VSED, VSED, it stands for voluntarily stopping eating and drinking. Okay. And I do support people who go through that, who choose that as their end of life option. VSED is legal in all 50 states. So just like you can choose to treat medically, you can choose to not treat. You can choose to take in hydration. You can choose to take in nutrition or not. Sure. So if somebody has an ailment, or they're uncomfortable, or if they don't have a terminal diagnosis, they don't qualify for hospice, but yet what they're going through is just unbearable, or maybe there's pain that it cannot be managed, or maybe they have early onset of Alzheimer's where they still have mental capacity, then that is a way that folks can choose. And we know animals, you've seen animals, you mentioned. So whenever they're at their end of life or they have an ailment, they'll go off by themselves and they don't want to eat. They don't want to drink anymore. They just go be quiet, you know, to themselves. And so our body has been dying forever. Right. And so it knows what to do. And so if there is something going on in there, if somebody's sick, then
they don't want to eat, and we think that's an act of love. Like, here, you got to eat.
Yeah,
and,
yeah.
constantly trying to give them food. But
It's the way to my heart. So it's
right, yeah. So it is. Anybody can choose. Like I said, it's legal in all 50 states, and so I do support. I do support people who choose that option.
Yeah,
for end of life.
Okay, so let's talk about this because that's probably a controversial thing, right? I'm sure not everybody's like, yes, like we support that and we love that. Do you find that those families or the person that you're supporting and they have a support system that you get a lot of pushback? Like, what does that look like? I would assume it's great if it's just them and they don't have a support system because now you're like, okay, I can support you. But I'm sure that there's family that comes in and says like, how dare you support this? Like, what does that look like?
Yeah, I've had those experiences.
I bet.
And I was like, oh my gosh, what am I getting into? But then I'm like, wait, it's legal. I am doing nothing wrong. And this person contacted me. I didn't reach out to them and said, hey, you want to stop eating? So they reached out to me. And so after meeting with them face to face and learning about their situation and then having no support system, no spouse, no children, no loved ones nearby. So I was like, yes, I will help you. And again, I'm the genie making the wishes come true. And so, I did support that person, and I did get a phone call on a Saturday evening, took the phone call, the call in my car, and I'm just getting chewed out on the other end. And I'm like, so I'm like, what am I getting into? What have I done here? But then I'm like, no, like this person reached out to me. They're going through their experience and I am here. This is my role. I'm here to support them. And as long as it's legal, again, I'm going to do anything in my power to make this person's wish and their end of life experience as best as it can be. Right. And then there's also belief systems, different religions or that, or maybe we're interceding there and stepping in ground that we shouldn't. But I believe personally, people have free will. They have free choice. And who are we to judge if that person is having pain that, that they can make this decision?
Yeah, we don't know.
Yeah, we're not in their shoes. And again, I let them be in the driver's seat and however I can help or assist or help with their quality, then I want to make that happen.
For the families that are, obviously ill and like we're coming to end of life, are you living there? Are you basically living there but not living there? Like, what is your hourly, like, what are you doing with them?
Yeah, that is a great question. Because the first person who I accepted the role of a death doula, then they chose to go through VSED because they didn't do allopathic medicine. They did all natural, holistic. And so they didn't want any intervention like that. And so this person had no support system. And I was in a position where I could do this. So I did stay there. I stayed there for a week with her. And I don't know if I would be able to do that with everybody. It depends. Like I said, every situation is different. But in this situation, it was the right thing to do. And if somebody is choosing VSED, then it would be wise to have a support system, 24/7 is optimal, just to make sure that, that if they do take pain meds, that their pain is controlled, that if they start to like hallucinate when they're going through that process of the body not having the nutrition or hydration, and then falling, like we don't want them to fall and end up in the hospital, which is what they don't want.
Right.
So so just making sure safety is number one, absolutely, and things are controlled and managed as best as they can. So in this person, I worked with them for about 6-7 weeks, and it was amazing because in that time I felt like that we created such a fast, deep relationship, and just sharing and helping this person unpack decades of life that's been stuffed down and packed away. There was a book that I read to her. We meditated together, and so just whatever experience she was looking for. And so it was really beautiful to be able to have her in her home and have her end of life go as she had wished.
Like number one, what a servant heart you have. Like that is wild. There's not a lot of people that would do what you do. I think we live in a society where it's like, okay, on to the next. How much money can I make? What can I do next?
Yeah.
And for you to sit and, for listeners or people that are questioning the doula, somebody like Rita, who's sitting with your loved one for 7, 10, whatever days, and just allowing them to have the best finish, right? Ultimately, that's what you're doing. You are saying, you know what, it maybe hasn't been good up until here, but I'm going to come in with my servant heart and I'm going to give you the best finish. And something else, that you said in the beginning that I got stuck with when my dad was sick, and I know, God, it would have been so beautiful to have somebody like you, is that initial, the health, like who's in charge? What does this medical stuff look like? What is all this? What do all these words mean? I feel like a pretty educated woman, and I can't imagine if my dad had to go through that alone. So being able to call somebody and say his health directive, like, can you walk him through that? Like, we don't know who to call. We don't know what to do. I almost feel like you're kind of like the in-between between navigating hospice, funeral home, cemetery, because there's a lot.
Yeah.
When someone's sick and it has to happen fast, there's a lot of things flying at them, and you are that person that advocates, that helps, that knows some of the verbiage, the terminology. And while you're not giving medicine and you're not giving health advice, you're just supporting what they already want, and you're being that communicator between hospice and family and them. Gosh, what a blessing that is, Okay, so let's talk about something controversial because I'm so intrigued by this. Someone says, I'm done. The pain is too much. There's something they can take, right? What is that called?
Medical aid and dying.
Yes, medical aid dying. Yeah. Okay. Talk to me briefly about what is that? Is it legal? How does that happen? What does that look like?
Yes. So medical aid and dying, it is legal in California. We're fortunate. There's 10 states and then DC that it's legal to do that in. And there's a lot of states attempting to get passed, right? So California, June 9th of 2016, it became legal. And a lot of people don't know that. Even doctors don't know that. There's doctors that are still sending people to Oregon.
Yeah, I know some.
Yeah. So it is. So that's another big part of what I want to do. You met me at public speaking. So I want to educate. Education is a huge thing. Once they're educated and they're armed with that information, they can make a choice and a decision. So it is legal. They have to have a terminal diagnosis. So basically, if you're eligible for hospice, then pretty much you can get the medical aid in dying. And so a terminal diagnosis of 6 months or less left to live. And then there's 2 verbal requests, 48 hours apart. It used to be 15 days, but that has changed in California.
Okay.
So now it's 2 verbal requests, 48 hours apart. And then there's a written request that, yes, they have to have the mental capacity. Yes, I am choosing this. I want this. And then there's the 2 physicians. There's an attending physician, and then there's a consulting physician. So one they come to and they say yes, and then the consulting agrees or disagrees, like, yes, this person is eligible or not. And so once they get that, then they can get the prescription. And just because they get the prescription, it can sit at the pharmacy or they can have it mailed to them or pick it up. Just because they have it doesn't mean they have to take it.
Okay.
And so again, mental capacity, it's all in their hands. They must be able to ingest on their own. There cannot be any, I couldn't help them, ingest it. They have to be able, if they have a feeding tube or a rectal catheter, they have to be able to push the plunger themselves. They have to be able to ingest themselves. And so I've been witness to that too. And it is a beautiful, a lot of, I catch ourselves because we say, oh, we don't know when we're going to die. And I go, oh, unless you're choosing medical aid and dying, you can choose your date and time of death. And
it's crazy. So we've had a couple of people at the cemetery that have gone through that process. And at first I was like, oh my gosh, like why? It's a thought that I never had before. Right. And wow, some people would choose that, but I've heard so much from you and I've researched now that like some people get approved for it. The pill stays at the pharmacy, but it's the relief knowing that they can.
Yes.
And that is a weight lifted. And for some people, I mean, I remember one of the funerals at Morgan Oaks where someone had done that, one of our clients, And everybody there was like, it was the most beautiful thing because she knew when it was going to happen. And so you were able to enjoy every single second. So everything on her bucket list was done because she knew. And they were like, it was just beautiful because it was like a farewell. We'll see you soon. Instead of this like, oh my gosh, what happened? It went all of a sudden. So, so interesting, right? And I think we're so quick to say, no, don't do that. But we don't know all of the things that are involved. We don't know what they're going through.
Right.
We don't know what their loved ones are going through. And we don't know the process. So like a lot of, as I've learned through these years of working at Morgan Oaks and working with you and individuals like you and things that I don't know, is go educate yourself.
Yes.
Understand the process. And if you don't, ask questions.
Exactly.
So Rita, as we start to wrap this up, what do you wish more people understood about death or grief or legacy or just anything maybe in your business?
Yes. So understand that we are born with a death sentence, just like our little friend here. Like all of us are going to do it.
Yeah.
None of us are exempt or going to get out of it, you know. So we're all going to do it. So, you know, Christmas is coming if you celebrate Christmas. You know, when a baby is born, there's 9 months leading up to it. We prepare, we plan, you know, getting married.
Great example.
So there's so much planning and preparation, but death, we want to just not look at or face. However, if we accept it, we embrace it, then we can prepare and plan. And I think, so my website, Rita for Life. So for life, like once we address that and we can set that aside and say, okay, got that done. And we know that that's a gift to our loved ones, that they're not going to be burdened by making these decisions under pressure. Like, oh my gosh, what would she want? Would she not want? And even pre-planning, then, the expense, like it can be less expensive planning ahead. Like, you know, some folks believe that the amount of the casket or the funeral is the amount of love that I had for this person, but we know that's not true.
Sure.
So there's options and there's ways. And, so doing that ahead of time. And again, that genie in the bottle, having their wishes come true and being able to honor them and have them get what they want. You know, to me, that's super important. So anybody that comes across my path and wants to work with me, then yeah, I just want all their wishes to come true and have them be able to unpack stuff and leaving a legacy. You know, there's people that do wonderful things in their life and they think they don't matter. So another thing we do, like doing a life review, and yes, you do matter. You know, you did matter, you do matter, and you've made a difference and you've touched lives, and just getting them to be able to see that and to know that, you know.
I love that. Wow. So great, Rita. Yeah. So great. Okay. So let's say someone listens to this and now they're like, wow, I had no idea. How do I find Rita other than call Stephanie? Yeah. Where can I find Rita? How can they find you or get in touch with you? And we'll also make sure all your information is posted. But what does that look like?
Yeah. So I have a website. It's Rita, the number 4 life.com. And so phone, text, email, reach out anytime. And yeah, I would love to answer any questions, you know. Great. Just anything.
I guess I should ask too, because some of the listeners might not be local.
Yeah.
What areas do you serve?
So I'm in Northern California, here in Rockland. So the Placer County, Sacramento County, physically, but worldwide, I can help anybody by Zoom. It's called Teledoula. So I've helped people by Zoom. I've helped people by telephone, you know, video conference. So really the world, but in person, you know, then this radius of the Placer County, Sacramento County, in this area.
Okay, perfect. All right. Well, for the listeners, we have a special treat. So we're gonna wrap up, but Rita has a letter, a testimonial, and I think it's beautiful. Somebody wrote it for you. And it is, you know, it's longer. And so listeners, it's kind of like a bonus edition. And it's really special to Rita. It's really special to what she does. And I really want her to share this because I think it gives you the full picture of what Rita does, and how she serves her community and what these death doulas do. And so, you know, I'm going to sign off with my part. And then this is like, as Colby said, the credits that come after, and like you wait for the bonus footage. So if you're listening, stay tuned to listen to Rita's letter from one of her clients, and she'll start that. But if you're listening, make sure you're following us on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, YouTube, all the things. And so thank you for listening. Walk gently, remember deeply, and celebrate the legacy of life. And so now Rita is going to share her letter.
Okay. And I thank you for letting me share this. I read it to a few people, speaking events that I did, just to test it out, and everybody's like, oh my gosh. And it really, this person took these 26 letters of the alphabet and really crafted a beautiful thing. I just asked for a testimony, like, can you give me a testimony of what did it mean to work with a doula? And so they said, yeah, sure, no problem, we'll do that. And then whenever it was done, they said, well, it's not like a Google review. It's a letter, you know, and this is what you've meant. So it is a little bit long. And the first few times I couldn't read it without crying, but I think I can do it now.
Either way, we'll take it.
Alrighty. And it really encapsulates the before, during, and after. Great. So it is beautiful. So I hope you stay tuned to listen. Okay. Doulas. Ever heard of them? I very well may be on my own island here, and if I am, it is certainly out of ignorance. But in the rare times in my life where the conversation of a doula would come up, I really wouldn't know who a doula was or what they did. They almost sounded fake, like some human with super spiritual powers that just didn't exist. Am I the only one who felt this way about doulas? And I thought if they actually did exist, my brain would have assumed what I believed in my own mind to be a likely stereotype, some overly patient, spiritual, hippie-esque woman that encouraged their client, often a mother going through pregnancy, to focus on the universe, bringing them what they want and suggesting gratitude at every turn of their childbearing experience. And in the case of a birth, I was under the assumption that a doula would only support all natural experiences, such as using no pain medications and promoting at-home childbirths. And finally, I thought doulas could easily get in the way of how a husband would want to provide physical and emotional support for his wife throughout the pregnancy, with it all ending with a frustrated husband because the doula got in the way of taking his place. Later, I learned there were doulas for people to face and navigate death, often called end-of-life doulas or death doulas, and this was equally mind-blowing to my brain. My immediate thought was, who would ever need a doula at the end of their life, given the role that family, friends, medical staff, therapists, church communities, etc., play in people's lives? I was the absolute last person who ever thought I would have a doula of any kind in my life. And then 2024 happened. Just 4 years prior, I was living an incredibly blessed and privileged life. My wife and 2 kids, born doula-free, of course, had just moved into our forever home, and family, work, social, and marital life were great. My family was also blessed with the minimal impact COVID had on our lives, especially when compared to others. Both my wife and I worked from home, and our kids generally did okay learning online. No one in our family became seriously ill from the virus, and I had the most successful year in sales in my 14-year career. Unfortunately, however, what unfolded over the next 4 years was something far more terrible than my worst nightmare. After a series of surgeries gone terribly wrong, my health deteriorated to the point of going through each day of my life in unlivable physical pain. From approximately May of 2022 until the late summer of 2024, there wasn't a day that went by that I didn't think about wanting to die, something that contradicted my lifelong Christian belief system. By the beginning of 2024, my family life had completely fallen apart. My wife and I were constantly battling one another due to our physical and emotional exhaustion. I had moved out of the house and was isolated. While my kids still loved me, my relationship with them was nothing like a normal parent-child relationship given my poor health. Simply put, I wanted to die and was actively seeking ways to do so. After researching peaceful ways to die, I came across going to Switzerland as an option, as they offered assisted suicide. But due to a variety of reasons, such as cost, logistics, and confusing my children, I felt out of options. With a nothing left to lose attitude, I opened my web browser, went to Google, and typed in death doulas. And that's when I found Rita Mason. Despite everything else going wrong in my life, upon meeting Rita, she was one of the few bright spots in my otherwise painful life. While death doulas aren't hired to perform tasks like housework or childcare, which I wasn't seeking anyway, nor are they clinicians, there is an abundance of value a death doula can provide, and Rita provided me an endless list of benefits which helped my brokenness. At first, I wasn't quite sure how she could help, so our first conversation lasted about an hour over Zoom, where I shared what was going on in my life. After one call, I appreciated how good of a listener Rita was, and I could tell from a single 60-minute discussion that if nothing else, Rita genuinely cared about the well-being of people, and she would be in my corner when it came to end-of-life decisions, planning, etc. She was one of the few people in my life where I felt completely comfortable sharing everything going on in my mind and the thoughts piercing through my brain. More comfortable than with my therapist, wife, many family members, and some of my close friends. In fact, Rita helped me so much from an emotional standpoint that I stopped meeting with my therapist. I certainly wouldn't recommend this for everyone, but for me, Rita filled an emotional void that had been in my life for nearly 2 years. As time went on, Rita continued to provide much-needed support in my life. While we did have formal catch-up conversations via Zoom or the phone from time to time, it was the text and audio messages we exchanged I appreciated most. Rita would always remember what was going on in my life, asked about my family and kids, and would always give me inspiration in a way that was helpful to me. Adding to that, a lot of people in my life tried their best to offer inspiration, and despite their good intentions, their motivation or words rarely aligned with the severe pain I was in. I often got a lot of mind over matter quotes or motivational messages that actually made me feel worse, not better. And while I am a person of faith, a lot of the faith-based messages I received from family were more the same. You can do and overcome anything with God. Short of God's direct divine intervention, I was just at a point that despite the fact I believe Jesus Christ is my Savior, I was in so much pain that I didn't believe those type of things anymore. Rita, however, knew where I was truly at, and any message of support she offered were things like a simple hello or asking me about my kids, or when messages of inspiration were sent, they were more reflective in nature and always had a way of tying back to where I was really at in my life, which made me feel loved and supported in the way I needed. She would also arm me with thoughts or suggestions that would help me get through a day or an upcoming event, such as a difficult therapy session with my wife. Sometimes she even had physical things to give me. For example, she recently let me borrow a small booklet called Dignity Day, in which I was able to read some quotes in a therapy session with my wife that supported my right to die with dignity, using the medical aid in dying option in California. She also helped me dot a lot of I's and cross a lot of T's with things I hadn't thought about. For example, there is a lot of paperwork that is necessary to complete with funeral homes on how your body is handled after you pass away, depending if you want to be cremated or buried, have a service, etc. Rita also encouraged me to write an autobiography to leave for my kids so they would never forget who I was or how much I love them. Also, while I am blessed with the 4 best friends in the world and a wife who loves me, sadly, I was in a position where I needed to die alone, or with just the doctor that prescribed me the medical aid and dying medication. And I was petrified and demoralized. I rarely thought of death until my health turned for the worse. But in the rare times I did, I always thought that when I died, I would be surrounded by my wife, children, and closest friends. Despite how much my wife loves me, she didn't support my decision to end my life through MAID, medical aid in dying. And by extension, she didn't want me to tell the kids of my choice or when I planned to pass. While as of this writing, my wife is rethinking her position on this, I am empathetic to her point of view and do not want her living a life of regret that she made the wrong decision either way. So while attempting to find some very difficult middle ground solution, I turned to Rita for advice, and she suggested that an intimate "I love you" with my kids, sharing how proud I am of them, but not telling them anything about my death, could be a good option. Over time, Rita got to understand how much I loved my kids and how difficult this was for me, especially given their young age, and always seemed to offer sound guidance on how to engage with them and remind me that they'll always love and remember me fondly. Finally, on the day I would pass, Rita would be by my side, supporting me in any way I needed, whether it is making sure my favorite song is playing or my favorite beverage is there to sip on, or needing a partner to reflect and pray with. Rita would be there for all of it. It goes without question, I consider Rita a wonderful friend that made the last few months of my awful life just a little bit better, something very few people could do. So, from the bottom of my heart, Rita, I thank you for everything you have done for me the last 6 months of my life. And I know if my wife and kids are willing to accept the love and support you can offer them, you will be there for my family after I am gone, helping them heal more quickly. I recommend you to anyone who is approaching the end of their life and feels like something is missing or out of order or just looking for extra compassion. Your peaceful personality, thoughtfulness, intentionality, and the love you show your clients is something everyone at the end of their life deserves.
Thank you, Rita. That was
you.
beautiful.